Thank you so much for coming. So my talk is also about information, and let's go on. So we're a publisher. We're not a material producer or so on, but we're very well known in the plastics industry. For those who don't know us, we have books like Understanding Polymer Processing. We have quite famous authors like, maybe you've heard of Tim Oswald there. We do trade journals. That's our traditional business. More recently, we've got into e-learning courses and also knowledge platforms. And that's where our story begins. So, for example, this PVC solution, that's focused on one particular branch of plastics, and it has a very nice search functionality, but it's rather like traditional Google. And of course, with the possibility of using AI tools, we wanted to take that sort of idea further. So let's jump right in. What is Plastics.AI? It's a new AI-based chatbot platform that uses only our books, only Hanser books as its data source, so not whatever content from the World Wide Web. It's designed for everyone who works in the plastics industry, so from beginners to advanced to experienced engineers, and it's a subscription product, but anyone can test it for free. I'm going to do a complete spoiler, and you're going to see how it works. So it's a chatbot. You can enter a prompt in the same way you would do in ChatGPT. How do I prevent jetting in injection molding, for example? And performance is pretty good. You get an answer. You would also get something like that from ChatGPT superficially. But what's different, so you also get some related questions there. What's different about it is we give you the sources every time. You don't just get reliable sources, which are our books, but you're not just given the citation, but you actually get the source. You get an extract of the text, figures, tables, and you can read on further if you wish. Go back to the chat. You can compare your answers that you get from the chatbot directly to the sources. So we've got 10 sources here, and we've got citations. You can click on those citation links. Okay, that could be it, really, for the talk. But what I want to tell you about is a little bit of the technology behind it. That's actually relevant for why this works well. And I'll also tell you about some survey results we did. We wanted to work very closely with customers for the development of the platform so that we would be sure that we're developing something useful for users. It also, hard to believe that ChatGPT was only launched less than 3 years ago onto the market. It had 100 million users in its first 2 months. And of course, there's well-known competitors like Gemini and so on. ChatGPT, just to get some definitions right, is a generative AI chatbot. It's a chatbot. And behind it is a large language model called GPT. And there's an important distinction to make. The large language model, or LLM, is the source of the language capabilities of ChatGPT. ChatGPT itself, as its content base, is the World Wide Web, more or less. We're not quite sure what's really in it. A lot of data. It's not fully daily up to date. It's important to realize. So the current version is more or less based on content from about a year ago. There are a few little updates, but that's it. Okay, what are the criticisms of things like ChatGPT? Some of this has already been elaborated in the last talk. So they're not transparent. You don't know what data is used. A lot of data, you don't know what the scope of that data is. The answers that you get cannot be fully trusted, partly because of the training data scope, and partly because the system can tell you lies. It can tell you fictions, which are hallucinations. The answers may be not completely relevant. They might be correct, but not fully answer the question or not be concise. They may be based on very problematic content. It could be illegal content. You don't know what that content is, or incorrect content, at least. The sources might well not be given. ChatGPT is a bit better about giving sources, but they're often incomplete. They don't cover the full literature. You can't always trust them. They might be fictional. And finally, those sources might be okay, but you can't access them. Okay, I'll say a bit about the technology we used. It's quite an exciting technology called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. And that's the technology behind the product. That uses our general language capabilities of the large language model, but with a selective set of documents. So we're not training the large language model with our data, we are augmenting it. And that is actually much less processing intensive, it's much more flexible. We, by definition, control the quality of our source content, and therefore we can guarantee that quality. So a little bit about the principles of a RAG system. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but it is relevant to the quality of the results, or how you can make a RAG system work well. The center of a RAG system is the vector store. It's a vector database. And that is fed from two sources. We have our content, which is our books, and that goes through an embedding model, which is our LLM that we've chosen. And that goes through a process called embedding or a transformation, and that is fed into the vector store. The other source for the vector store is our query, our prompt. That is also fed through the LLM, goes through embedding, and what happens then is there's a comparison made between the vectors of the prompt and the content to find content that has a thematic proximity. What's important is that the content is always attached to the vectors. And that means that what comes out of the vector store always has a very close relationship to the original text in a RAG system. And if it has a close relationship, it means that you're likely to if you've got a good source data, you're likely to get a good answer. So that uses the LLM is then used to generate your answer. Right. Let's move on. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to have to accelerate a bit. So I'll talk this is my last sort of technical slide. For a RAG system, it's actually quite easy. It's quite an accessible technology. It's easy to make a mediocre RAG system. We didn't want to make a mediocre one. I'll tell you about some of the optimizations that we made to make it good. So this actually dates from about a year ago or so. We compared different LLMs. So we can choose what LLM we use. We can swap and change. Very easy to do with a RAG system. We found that GPT-4 was better than the alternatives. We're prioritizing answer quality over the cost as well. That's really important to us. So GPT Mini wasn't as good. So even though it's cheaper, we use the best model we have available. We've moved on from that now, but we can use what we like, and we can move between them. We'll use the best. As the last speaker said, structured data is super important. And we're a publisher. We work really well with content data. One reason for that is what's necessary for a RAG system is to divide it up into chunks, into pieces. And you can see this is a piece down below. That's a piece of text. It's structured, and it's then converted into vectors here. You want those chunks to be not too small. If it's too small, then it can only answer a very specific question. If it's too large, it will provide only a very general answer. You want to find the sweet spot in the division of text into chunks to get good answers. That was important. It's all about quality. And lastly, there's a parameter called temperature, which is the degree of freedom that the chatbot has to answer its questions. And we set that conservatively to avoid hallucinations. And if we set the temperature conservatively, they are suppressed. We do not see fictions in the answers. That's what we thought, but we wanted to see what real plastics engineers thought. I'm actually a chemist, not a plastics engineer. I've worked in the industry a while, but that's my training. I respect the users. So I did a lot of demos, even at the MPE last year. We did a quantitative survey. It's not a huge group, but that's been confirmed subsequently by more recent testing. I want to show you some results from this survey so that to give some evidence of the quality of the system. So one thing we asked the users to do, with a prototype, was to compare the quality of the answers to ChatGPT. The answers are out of 5. And the blue bars here are for our Plastics.AI. The gray is for ChatGPT. This is based on a 50 books source model. You can see that in every quality criterion, we are better than ChatGPT. In relevance, in conciseness of the answers, the reliability of the answers, even in the completeness of the answers, although our data set is actually much smaller, we're a little bit ahead. But in terms of things like the quality of the sources given and the convenience of access to the sources, we're quite some way ahead. So this is what we hope is our USP, are those sorts of things, and the speed of the answer response is fine as well. I'm going to show you a few of the questions that some of the users asked just as examples. So one person asked, how does the processing of reinforced PPS differ from that of peak? We get an answer in our chatbot, several sources given here. One of them, say, from our book, Specialty Thermoplastics. It's a good source, especially for PPS. And there were several others, so that was satisfactory. Another person asked, what are the implications of polymer transparency in their applications in sunlight-exposed environments? Again, we get quite a good answer. Our extract, there's 10 sources again, but one of them, say, from training in plastics technology. You can see in this case it gave a table of data. You can check every paragraph against the source. Some people ask completely random questions. Somebody asked, what color is a cat? I think they're being provocative. And our system will not lie to you. It will say, the context doesn't specify it. It says, I don't know. It might say, oh, well, the context does discuss how colors are perceived and so on in the books, but it will not. The point is that something like ChatGPT might kind of make up an answer to that. Somebody else asked, well, lithium battery electrochemical composition, well, it's beyond the scope, at least, of that data set. Maybe we'll choose to put that in. We look at what the users ask, and then we'll think about, well, what books do we prioritize next? Use cases. We asked in the survey about use cases. In all the use cases that we asked about, we scored pretty highly. So out of 5. Most cases over 4 out of 5. So for learning, as a learning tool, or as a teaching tool, well over 4 out of 5. For research, well, we're based on books. We're not based on research papers. It's not bad, almost 4. But it was more to support research is the intention, rather than to be a primary research tool. For daily reference, we got a good score, and for something like preparation of presentations, we scored quite well. So let's maybe see an example of that. This is actually from me rather than from the particular user. I said, well, make me a presentation on the extrusion blow molding process, reprocessing, it doesn't matter, in five slides, each with 4 bullet points with notes for the speaker. And that's what it does. It will, so you don't have to just ask the system questions, you can ask it to do a task for you. So in this case, we have some slides with the notes for the speaker. There's an extract from the book Rheology and Polymer Processing. There's diagrams. As I said, in the chat, we get the diagrams, in the source, we get the diagrams, but not necessarily in the chat. Another example where it might be used for education, you can ask it to give you some test questions. So provide 5 multiple choice questions on testing PVC parts, and it gives you some questions, including what the right answer should be. You have a source. No guarantee that the questions are perfect, but you always have the source to check it against. So you can imagine using it in education or self-education. You can also use to do more fancy things like, I said, make me a table comparing the properties of PET and PMMA. And that's what it did. So it rendered it in HTML. That table doesn't exist in any of our books, in that form anyway. So it's gathered information from different sources and collects it together in a table for you. And that's so one of our sources there is the Plastics Handbook, one of our well-known books. Natalie Rudolph is here, one of the editors. It's a reliable source. And finally, children's story. I said, explain addition polymerization as a children's story. Once upon a time, there were lots of little building blocks called monomers. Each monomer had a special hand. It's not great, but it shows that you're only limited by your imagination. You can ask it to do what you like. Just try it out, and you've always got. If it's a technical topic as well, you can always compare it to the source. Try it out. We don't know what all the use cases are yet. Have to look at the time. Another important aspect is that it's multilingual. We asked a number of our users, our test users, were non-native English speakers, or they spoke other languages, and we asked them what they thought of the multilingual capabilities. That was important to them. We asked them about the comprehension of the task, the overall technical quality of the answer, the grammatical quality of the answer, the selection of sources, and the overall usefulness of that feature. And in each of those criterion, we scored well over 4 out of 5. So that it's well appreciated by non-native English speakers. Our sources are only in English and German. We have German books as well as English books, but we don't have any other languages as our sources. But the chatbot speaks many more languages. Specific use case, a German question. Wie wird Polypropylene recycled? How is polypropylene recycled? If we give a German prompt, because we've got German sources, the LLM will tend to choose German sources if we give a German prompt. And that's the majority. Not all of them. One of the sources is an English one. It will try and always pick the best source that it feels is right. If we ask the same question in Spanish, ¿Cómo se recicla el polipropileno? We don't have any Spanish books. We do get the answer in Spanish, but it's chosen at least mostly English books for that. So if you don't speak English your first language or German is your first language, it's making that content accessible for you. Just very quickly as a summary of those use cases. This is what we sort of gathered from the survey. We've discovered more since then. In general, we think it's really useful as an introduction to a subject and training. You know, someone who really doesn't know about plastics or a particular area of it can ask questions freely, have a dialogue, get exactly the answer they need in particular. If you're a more advanced user, you can use it a bit like an index on steroids. You can ask any question you like and get quickly to the information you don't need to have to know precisely what the keyword is. You can ask a question and you get a list of sources. You can set it task, make a presentation, make me a short course or a summary. Up to you what you make. That was regarded as very useful. You might get people like the idea of suggestions for product process development or improvement. We maybe need to add some more content to make that even more useful. You get some reliable references, and you can access the content in a range of languages. Over 80, actually, there is. I won't say too much about this slide because we're running out of time. There are two aspects of a RAG system which are good. And to highlight it for us, you have all the general benefits of the underlying LLM. So whether it's GPT or Gemini, something like that, that's our engine, if you like, in the background. You've got, we can use the latest technology. We can chop and change. We can use the best one that's available. And yet, we control our content pool with our books. It's modular and scalable. If we get a new edition of a book, we can add that. It's really not too much effort for us to do that because we're not retraining the model. It works especially well with well-structured content. The structured data is very important. Also, how it's written. Books are written in a didactic way. They're written to be clearly explained. That has an influence on the answers. So the fact is book content is actually important. You get the sources, and we've built a user-friendly interface on top. OK, so we're currently at about 70 books. We have... in the system, it's growing rapidly. This represents only a fraction that's here. That's less than half of those 70 books. There's none of the German books are here listed there, and that's not even all the English ones. It covers the fundamentals, so general aspects, sustainability topics. There's the book from Raphael Kiesel and Natalie Rudolph. We have a new edition of that. That will go very shortly on the platform. We have processing, we have applications, we have design, we have materials as well, and analysis. Thank you so much. No, I wanted to... Can we go back to that? Thank you. Thanks for coming. You can all try Plastics.AI for yourself. That is the real URL, Plastics.AI. It's not we haven't just made that up. You get 5 prompts for free just by registering with an email address. Come to our booth. We're near the north entrance. N07 is the booth number. We're giving demos there. You can see my colleagues giving lots of demos. You can play with it. There's my email address. And any questions?
First of all, thank you very much.